Hey guys, today I'm going to be doing a review on Season 1 of Outrageous. So before I head into my thoughts and feelings on this first season of Outrageous, quick disclaimer, this is based off of historical events, historical real-life people, and I don't consider things like that to be a spoiler. So this video is definitely going to be getting into a lot of the big, huge, scandalous things that happens to these characters, and maybe even some stuff that goes beyond what has happened in this first season, because I'm crossing my fingers we do get a second season, you guys. So yeah, that being said, if you do not know anything about the show or anything about the Mitford sisters, and if you just don't really want any sort of spoilers whatsoever, you might want to stay clear of this video. But once again, I don't consider history to be a spoiler. I don't consider real life people to be spoilers, so you have been warned. So let's get into my thoughts and feelings on Season 1 of Outrageous, you guys. This is what you need to know about this show. This show, you can watch it on BritBox. Let me just say, you guys, BritBox, I have been subscribed to BritBox for quite a number of months at this point, and seriously, I think it's well worth the subscription. I am not being sponsored by BritBox. If BritBox would like to pay me, please do. But yeah, I'm not being sponsored by BritBox, but I have seriously been in love with my subscription to BritBox. I have watched a lot of great British programming on there. I have yet to really be disappointed by anything. But yeah, this show is on BritBox. This first season only has 6 episodes. Yeah, guys, for some reason I went into it thinking it maybe had about 8 or 10, and then when I was watching the final episode, episode 6, I was like, wait a minute, is this the season finale? And sure enough, it was. And yeah, a good thing about these episodes, they're only about like 45 minutes a piece. Yeah, guys, and that is like just absolute perfect and ideal with like a show like this. So it's not like an overly time-consuming show whatsoever. And the show is based off of a work of nonfiction by Mary S. Lovell, a book called The Sisters, the Saga of the Mitford Family. And apparently, when I was kind of reading other reviews about this show, apparently this first season pretty much covered like the first half of that book. So it seems like a second season will cover the last half, obviously. That is what I am aware of at the moment. Correct me if I'm mistaken about that, because I have yet to read that book. But yeah, after watching the show, I might have to check out that book, because there's just a lot of intriguing things, and I have a feeling there's a lot that this show probably had to leave out on the cutting floor, you know. So this is what you need to know about Outrageous, if you're not sure what the plot is exactly. It is set in the 1930s in England, following the 6 Mitford sisters who refuse to play by the rules of their aristocratic upbringing, and their scandalous lives make headlines around the world. I gotta say, I don't know if this is embarrassing or not, but I have heard about the Mitford family, the Mitford sisters. I have really only heard about them in passing. I just didn't know a thing about them, like, individually. So there were a lot of things happening in this show that I was like, wow, okay, I didn't know this was a thing whatsoever. Now, like, Nancy Mitford is the oldest of the Mitford sisters, and again, she is someone that I have heard about in passing, mostly because she is a writer. And the thing is, I've never read any of her books, but I have seen like an adaptation of one of her books, because one of her books is like The Pursuit of The Pursuit of Love, is that what it's called? I think it's called The Pursuit of Love, and that was adapted into like a miniseries a couple years ago, and had like Lily James and Emily Beecham in it. So it's like, I'm aware of Nancy Mitford in like that regards, that I know she is a writer, and I believe some of her books have been turned into adaptations, The Pursuit of Love being kind of the biggest one recently. So yeah, I went into this show completely just with a lack of knowledge, and I kind of like that I went into the show with a lack of knowledge, because each little thing that was happening, I was like, wow, is this for real? And after each episode would air, I would literally get online and do some Google searching and look up kind of the fact and fiction of what the show is presenting and being like, okay, is this for real, you know? And of course, the show, I think, is definitely taken its fair use of historic liberties, obviously. I mean, it's historical fiction. You got to kind of work around with things. But at the same time, it seems like it's pretty fairly accurate from kind of the Google searching I was doing, which is wild. So onto the show itself. I personally found this show to be thoroughly entertaining and engaging, and more than anything, just completely, utterly fascinating and interesting. Yeah, guys. Like I said, I've only really heard about the Mitford sisters in passing, so a lot of what was going on here was completely brand new knowledge to me, and I was eating this show up every single week it was on, okay? I was eating it up. I was always kind of hooked episode by episode, like, okay, where's everything going? What next scandalous thing is going to happen to these girls? This show, it does have a fairly large cast of characters in some ways, because you have the 6 Mitford sisters themselves, you have their mother and father, you have their brother, and then you kind of have like the periphery characters on the edges, you know. And I do think this show did a pretty good job of establishing the 6 girls themselves, you know, because the 6 Mitford sisters, they are who we are primarily following in this show. They are our protagonists for the most part. I guess a couple of them you can. Are they antagonists? We'll kind of get into that, but for the most part, there are protagonists. We're witnessing their lives and the historical events that are going on around them. Like I said, the show is taking place in 1930s England, and there's the rise of fascism, there's the rise of socialism and communism, and there's all sorts of craziness going on. World War II is literally kind of starting at the very end of this show. So these girls are witnessing a lot of big moments in their lives and a world that is rapidly changing around them, because yeah, they come from a world of wealth. They have very aristocratic upbringing, and so yeah, this world is rapidly changing around them, where, you know, the social and political atmosphere is developing day by day, you know, and they've got to grow and change with it. Their way of life, you know, their aristocratic upbringing, that is changing. That is a fading world, and so they have to take their lives into their own hands at this point, because we do definitely get an idea pretty quick in this show, you know, that their family is in a bit of financial difficulty. They live in a really wonderful, nice house, but, you know, with that comes, you know, maintaining this house and maintaining a staff and just other numerous things that come with that. And yeah, they're having financial difficulties with a lot of that. So we get the idea pretty quick that their family, there's some financial issues. They all, in the meantime, you know, the sisters, they're at this time, you know, they're considering themselves modern women. They want to get out of the confines of their aristocratic upbringing, and they want to make a name for themselves and do their own things. They have their own goals and ambitions, and they don't want to be constricted to what their nobility tells them that they are supposed to be doing. You know, like, yeah, Nancy Mitford, she wants to be a writer, and she's very successful at it. And yeah, all of the other sisters want to do their own thing. They want to have their own voice. They want to be heard. So yeah, they're very modern in that regard, within what's going on in this show. And like I said, I do think the show did a really good job of developing the 6 sisters themselves. I think you get a good idea of probably like 4 of them. I think 4 of them this show develops very, very well, and you can get into their depth and nuance and their personalities and their quirks. And then there's like 2 of them that we don't really spend too much time with, but you still get an idea of their personality. None of them come across the same. You know what I mean? I think the writing for each individual sister is very well done, and yeah, you can tell them all apart immediately. When I watched episode 1, the first thing I thought of, I was like, oh dear God, there's 6 of these girls. They all look alike practically, with, you know, the hairstyles and just their coloring, the wardrobe choices. You know, I was like, oh God, it's going to take me forever to figure out which girl is which. But I think by the time episode 2 rolled around, I was fairly good with, okay, this is Nancy, this is Diana, this is Unity, you know, I got them all down pretty quickly. So I do think this show did a good job of establishing each sister individually. That way, by the time you do get to episode 6, you know, you have a good sense of them as people and as characters and where their ambitions are taking them. The overall look and kind of, I guess, structure of the show, I suppose, I really liked how this show looked. It's really vibrant and colorful, which I'm wondering if that's going to shift into a second season, because yeah, season 2, if this show does get picked up and renewed for a second season, we're definitely going to be heading into World War II territory, which is going to get really dark and scary and terrifying. So I'm curious if there's going to be this interesting juxtaposition between the seasons, you know, that this first season is really vibrant and colorful. And I mean, I think Nancy Mitford, the character herself, she says that really well, literally in the finale of this show. She says something about, you know, our girlhood has ended, but our womanhood is like about to begin, you know. So yeah, season 1 is essentially their girlhood, you know, and I think that it goes nicely with the more vibrant, colorful nature of the show. And yeah, I'm kind of expecting season 2 to maybe get a little bit more darker and deeper and whatnot. And Nancy Mitford is the primary character we are focusing on in this show. She is the one narrating this show. She's the one that we're primarily getting her big point of view. And yeah, she narrates, and her narration is often very humorous and dry, and yeah, her just what her relationship is like with each of her sisters, with her family, with the men in her life that disappoint her. So you definitely have this really kind of dry, humorous narration going on through Nancy with this show. And yeah, even there's like title cards, like there'll be a title card like, okay, we're at this location, and even that sometimes the way it's worded will be oftentimes very hilarious, you know, because it'd be like somewhere over here, you know. It won't be like a serious title card, it'd be like a humorous title card. And even the music of the show, it's like really like upbeat. Yeah, I'm not sure how to describe it. It's like really upbeat and kind of chipper and chippy. It's not like really dark, angsty, dramatic music or anything. It's really just kind of upbeat. There's almost kind of this jazzy kind of flair to the music that you might have kind of a dark moment, but the music will kind of pick up in an interesting way. It's kind of add a bit of humor to the situation. And I guess as far as like the thematics of this show goes, like what to kind of expect with the themes, I suppose, this is definitely a show all about family. It's all about sisters more specifically. And I think a thing of, you know, like I said, these characters, the Mitford sisters, they're very controversial figures historically. We'll get into that as I get into each individual character. They're very controversial women, and a lot of times, I like what this show does because it shows that they are sisters. They do have that bond and relationship and that love at their core, but they have their disagreements. They have their arguments. There's a lot of times they do not get along. They do not see eye to eye on certain situations. They do spend a lot of time just bickering and arguing, and sometimes it can be over just mundane things, but other times it can be something really heavy and serious, especially when their political leanings come into play. So yeah, at the heart of this show, it's about this relationship and bond between all of these sisters and just the family unit as a whole. And I think the show is asking this question of, you know, even when you have disagreements with family, even when you're kind of falling out with family and you have different political leanings or whatever, is it still all right to love your family? You know, is it still all right to love your family even despite that? And yeah, I mean, there's always kind of that thing that you see in narratives like this, especially between sisters, you know, that the bond between sisters is just a thing in and of itself, you know. Sisters always have rivalries with each other and petty jealousies, you know. So yeah, this show is definitely tackling that and exploring the whole notion of, you know, is it all right to still love your family at the end of the day, despite differences and whatnot? And yeah, when is too far? Is there a point of return? You know, if there's just something a family member does, is it just too much? Is it too far? Can you go back to what you once had? And yeah, the characters kind of have to make those choices, especially by the finale. You know, like, you're on this side, I'm on this side, where we go from here. And again, like I said, another big kind of thematic thing of this show is definitely the whole thing of these women trying to break the mold, you know, break out of their aristocratic upbringing. They want to be modern women. They want to have their own goals and ambitions. They want to make their own money, you know. So that's another thing of the show too. It's a very highly feminist piece, you know. I think it's a really highly feminist show at its core. Okay, let's get into the individual characters, yeah, guys. I'm not sure how I'm going to talk about some of them because, once again, some of them are very highly controversial. It's like, good lord, what do I say? But yeah, starting with the character of Nancy Mitford, played by Bessie Carter, who I think a lot of us mostly know through, like, Bridgerton, for instance. I really loved Bessie Carter as Nancy Mitford. Bessie Carter has usually always played, you know, supporting roles or small roles. So I was really happy to see her she is the star of the show. You know, she's effectively the star of the show, and she is the voice that you are listening to. And yeah, Nancy as a character, she is kind of that voice of reason. She's kind of the most logical, the most rational. She is the oldest of the Mitford sisters, and so she carries a lot of the weight and burden and responsibility, you know, making sure this family stays in line, making sure relationships are held. But I really liked Nancy as a character. I think she probably is the most relatable because she's kind of the sister who's in the middle, you know, because you have the sisters that are way over on this side of the political leanings. You have the sisters over here on this side of the political leanings. And yeah, Nancy's kind of like there in the middle, you know, and it's like, when you're first kind of introduced to her, it's like she doesn't want to pick sides. You know, it's like she wants to love all of her sisters equally and listen to them and listen to their viewpoints. And yeah, her character kind of has to make a decision by the very end, like, where does she need to kind of lean a little bit more towards, obviously. And as I said, Nancy is a writer, a real life historical writer, obviously. And we do get that played out in this show, you know, that she's already had books published and she's in the middle of writing other books. Moving on, we have Diana Mitford, played by Joanna Vanderham. Diana Mitford, you guys, oh my god. You know, if I had to pick a character that was my favorite character, I don't know if favorite character might be too much of a strong word considering kind of where her character goes, but if I had a character that I really liked watching, that I enjoyed her plot arc and development because it was just really fascinating, it probably would be that of Diana Mitford. Yeah, as played by Joanna Vanderham, yeah, she's the next oldest sister, and she's kind of like, I feel like she's kind of like the sexy one. You know, she's the seducer, the seductress. There's kind of like this slinky quality to her. She kind of just walks into a room and all eyes immediately go to her. You know, she's very glamorous and stylish. She knows she looks amazing at any given time, you know, and she's never out of sorts. You know, she's always very prim and proper. She hardly ever raises her voice, but when she raises her voice, you best listen to her. But yeah, she's kind of like that type of character, you know, she doesn't stray out of her box, out of her line. She's very poised and collected, and she doesn't want people to see her out of that poise and collection whatsoever, because I think she sees that as some sort of sign of weakness. But yeah, Diana, like I said, I think Diana, I don't agree with things and choices that she was making, obviously, but it's like, I still found her character to be one of the most fascinating and the most fun to watch, I suppose. I just really found myself getting the most invested in her story, oddly enough. Like, every time she came on screen, it's like, I was just immediately there with her. You know, I think Joanna Vanderham's performance was just absolutely gripping and stunning and kept you glued to the screen, I think. And yeah, the big thing with Diana's character, yeah, guys, if you don't know all this, like I said, I don't consider history to be a spoiler, but yeah, Diana, she gets into the fascist movement, yeah, guys, and we know how that goes. And yeah, her big core relationship is with that of Oswald Mosley, who was a real historical figure, and he was the leader of the fascist movement at that time. You might be vaguely familiar with Mosley and Diana if you happen to watch like those last couple seasons of Peaky Blinders, because they're actually big characters in those last couple seasons of Peaky Blinders. So I was already pretty familiar with like Diana and Mosley through just Peaky Blinders alone. But yeah, as I said, Diana gets into the fascist movement. She hooks up with Oswald Mosley, who I said, once again, he's the leader of the fascist movement. And good lord, you know, I hate saying this, but they had some chemistry. I hate saying it, but they did. They had great chemistry with one another, and you can see why these two are appealing and attractive to one another, and what they see in each other that they like so much. And yeah, they just have such a great dynamic with one another, and yeah, just the direction and places that relationship goes to. It's like I know it's coming, you know. I once again, just through the little bit that I had of them on something like Peaky Blinders, it's like I know where that's going, you know. But yeah, I did. I found Diana to be just absolutely captivating. Once again, totally don't agree. Totally don't agree with her life decisions, you know, but it's like, wow, what a performance still by Joanna Vanderham, nonetheless. Moving on to the next controversial Mitford sister, you guys. Let's talk about Unity Mitford. Boy, oh boy, played by Shannon Watson. What to say about Unity, you guys? Unity is also a character that she is drawn to the fascist movement. Now, the thing is, even though Diana is drawn to the fascist movement as well, the thing is, I don't really see Diana as being delusional. Does that make sense? Is that the right? I'm trying to think how best to kind of describe the difference between Diana and Unity, because even though they both support the same cause, they still go about it very differently, if that makes sense once again. Yeah, Diana, I think, is a bit more, I don't know, rational about the whole thing, I guess. Whereas the character of Unity Mitford, you guys, Unity Mitford, she gets into the whole fascist movement, and boy, that girl, she is crazy. She's delusional. She's obsessed. She's just obsessed with all things fascism. And it's insane to watch her character progress from episode 1 to episode 6, because I didn't know a thing about Unity. Like I said, there's a lot about these women that I didn't know heading into this show. So Unity, I didn't know a thing about Unity, just how far into fascism she went, and her obsession with Hitler and her relationship with Hitler, you guys. My God, that was a shock to me. And so, yeah, like in episode 1, when we're first introduced to Unity, you know, she has like her big coming out ball, you know, where she's going out into society. And that's what they did back then, you know, the nobility and the aristocrats and whatnot. You know, she has her big coming out ball, and I initially just really kind of adored Unity when she was first introduced, because she's kind of not really into the whole thing. She's a little bit grumpy about it. And yeah, I like how she had her little pet rat. You know, she had her little pet rat, and she loved that little rat, and like she stuffed it in her purse, you know, and she took the rat with her down into, you know, to the party and whatnot, and would feed him every so often. So it's like, I was really kind of charmed with Unity initially, just that relationship she had with that stupid little rat. And then I was devastated when she gave the rat back to the wild, you guys. When she gave that rat back to the wild, I was just absolutely devastated. It's like, oh girl, you've gone far down. But yeah, again, I didn't know a thing about Unity, and kind of like Diana, I found Unity, her character journey, to be really riveting as well, while also just being horrifying. I mean, it was horrifying to watch her character progression, you guys. And again, just to see this kind of naive, innocent girl, where she goes by the time you get to episode 6, you know, and she's absolutely delusional. Her innocence is gone. She's super obsessed with fascism. She's obsessed with Adolf Hitler, you guys, and it's so icky and it's so gross. It does it while you're watching, your skin is crawling. And seriously though, Shannon Watson, her performance though, I don't know what on earth she was doing. I don't know what place she had to get herself into with this performance, but her performance, again, it's just so captivating. And her eyes, there's just something about her eyes. She can do so much with her eyes, and like, you could see that obsession, you know. It doesn't look like a performance. You know how sometimes you can watch an actor and it's clear it's a performance, but it's like you can watch Shannon Watson in this in this role, and it's like she's completely into it. You know, she has let herself get into this to fully be this character, and it's terrifying and it's scary to watch. But yeah, Unity, oh my God, you guys, I can't wait to get into season 2 to kind of get more into all that drama, because it gets wild. You guys, once again, I did a lot of Google searching. I did a lot of Google searching, a lot with like Diana and Unity, especially because they're just so bizarre. Yeah, Unity story especially. Good Lord, the places it goes. Wow. Moving on, I'm probably not going to talk too much about a lot of these other people because they're kind of, almost a little standard in some ways. But moving on to Jessica Mitford, played by Zoe Brawl, I think is how that might be pronounced. Jessica, she is on the complete opposite end of the spectrum with the sisters. Like I said, kind of Nancy, who kind of straddles that middle ground, but then you have like Diana and Unity, who are way over here on the fascism end, and Jessica is over here on this end, and she gets wildly into the communist movement, you guys. And yeah, her character, it's like she acknowledges the fact that she has a very wealthy, privileged upbringing, and that a lot of things have been handed to her, and she really just wants to make a change and a difference in the world, and she just can't understand, where Diana and Unity are coming from, obviously, and the same with them. They can't understand where she's coming from. So I loved kind of that dynamic of these sisters, that they're all not the same, they all have their own different personalities and interests. And yeah, Jessica being way over here on the side of communism, that was just wild as well. And yeah, she gets really obsessive with like another young man who's like part of the movement as well, and he's actually like a cousin of theirs. Did I understand that correctly? He's a cousin? Did they say he's related to the Churchills? I got a little confused with the family tree at one point, because they made it sound like they're related to the Churchill families at some point, and I was like, wait, is that accurate? I meant to kind of do a little bit more research about that, but I swear the cousin is a Churchill. I'm not sure how that family tree works out exactly. I have to look into it. But yeah, she gets kind of obsessive with that guy. So I'm kind of curious where that story is going to go into a second season, because it just kind of skimmed the surface of that relationship literally at the very end of episode 6. Moving on, we have Pamela Mitford, played by Isabel Jesper Jones. And I really liked Pamela. I think Pamela is the most laid back of all the sisters. She likes wearing comfy clothes, and she's kind of a bit more, I think, kind of sporty. She's kind of more into like being out in the countryside, I guess. And yeah, she likes to drive cars. Yeah, she is much more casual and laid back out of all of the sisters. I kind of really like that about her, compared to all the drama going on with all the other sisters. She was kind of like the refreshing sister, like, oh, thank God she's here. And yeah, she's one of the sisters we don't really get to spend a lot of time with, unfortunately, but I'm hoping maybe another season will kind of flesh her out a little bit more. But what we got with her, I think, was very well done. And then yeah, the last Mitford sister, we have Deborah Mitford, played by Orla Hill. And yeah, she is the youngest of the Mitford sisters, and very much like Pamela, yeah, Deborah doesn't really get a lot of screen time in this show at all. We kind of barely graze the surface with her. Yeah, she kind of forms a infatuation with this other older man, but then yeah, Pamela ends up kind of stealing him away. I'm not sure how that worked out exactly. I feel like I missed something, how that transfer of relationship happened. But yeah, yeah, Deborah is, she's the youngest. She's the most innocent. Yeah, she's still kind of considered a child in some ways. She's about to enter womanhood herself. So again, Pamela and Deborah both, I'm hoping we get a little bit more with them in season 2. I think, unfortunately, they're probably the most boring of the Mitford sisters. Maybe that's terrible to say, but they're kind of the most boring of the Mitford sisters. But maybe that's a good thing. That's probably a good thing that they're the most boring. And then moving on to the rest of the cast really quickly, we have Tom Mitford, played by the lovely, gorgeous Toby Regbo. You guys, Toby Regbo, whenever he pops up in something, I'm always like, yay. And unfortunately, I know where poor Tom Mitford, where his story's heading. You guys, I'm not looking forward to it. Let's just say I'm probably gonna need a tissue. We got World War II coming up. You can go from there, you guys. But yeah, he's the sole brother of this family, and I think he kind of has a lot of weight and responsibility on his shoulders as well. Yeah, he doesn't really get a lot of screen time on the show, because once again, it's primarily focused on the Mitford sisters. But when he's there, I think the show makes really good use of his time and his relationships with everybody in the family. And then yeah, moving on to the mother and father of the Mitfords, we have Lady Reedsdale, played by the wonderful Anna Chancellor. You guys, seriously, does Anna Chancellor never stop working? I feel like I watch her in about 3 things in any given point in a year. It's like, I feel like that woman is constantly working and doing something. And yeah, at her age, good for you. You go, woman. But yeah, I love Anna Chancellor. And yeah, she, like I said, she plays Lady Reedsdale, the mother of the family, the matriarch. And yeah, I guess kind of talking about her combined with James Purefoy. Yeah, guys, James Purefoy is playing Lord Reedsdale, and he is their father. Anna Chancellor and James Purefoy, I love them together as a unit on this show, as the mother and the father of this whole dysfunctional bunch. The thing is, yeah, the two of them, the mom and dad, seriously, I think they are the most just normal people. They're the most rational people. They just want the family to be happy. They just want the family to grow and you know, just be itself. I think you definitely get the idea, you know, because they're aristocratic, obviously. You definitely get the idea that they are a very conservative family, and they have conservative values and wishes and ambitions, and they just want their daughters to get married and have families and have happy lives. And yeah, when the daughters especially are kind of going out and branching out and doing different things, you know, yeah, Lord and Lady Reedsdale, they're like all scandalized, like, what are y'all doing? You know, why can't you just be normal and do this like we told you to do? But I seriously loved Lord and Lady Reedsdale, you guys. They're probably some of my favorite characters every time it would go to them. And yeah, once again, just Anna Chancellor and James Purefoy, what a combo, you guys. What a power duo of performances right there. Yeah, you can definitely feel, especially in scenes when they're together, you know, just the tension that they're feeling for their family, the anxiety that they're feeling for their family, and the fact that this world is diminishing. You know, the world of the aristocracy is diminishing around them, and yet they have to give up their home at the end. You know, they have to kind of accept defeat and move with the changing times, and it's heartbreaking. You know, that final episode is very heartbreaking with the family when they have to kind of leave their ancestral home and kind of go off to do other things, you know, to conserve money, essentially. And then last, let's talk about Joshua Sass, who plays Oswald Mosley. Yeah, guys, I definitely couldn't end this review without talking about Joshua Sass as Oswald Mosley. My God. As I've already kind of mentioned him very quickly when I was talking about Diana. Yeah, Oswald Mosley, the leader of the fascist movement. Joshua Sass was a really excellent choice for this role, because he's Joshua Sass. I think he's a very good looking guy. You know, he's very attractive, and he definitely has that charisma that's pouring out of him. You know, you can see why someone like Diana is falling for this guy, you know. But it was just so fascinating to watch Joshua Sass, because one of the other big things that I've seen him in, you guys, if you remember the TV musical show Gallivant. Does anybody remember Gallivant? It ran for like 2 seasons. It was like a 30-minute comedy show that was a musical, and there was like songs every week. And yeah, Joshua Sass, he played the main character of Gallivant, and yeah, he was always singing and dancing, you know, in a given episode. So what a difference! What a difference that this same man played Gallivant, and now he's playing Oswald Mosley. You guys, what a difference. But still, I love Joshua Sass's performance of Oswald Mosley. Just again, just something captivating about it. You know, you are caught into that like Diana is, you know, and it's like you know, he's a bad man. He's a bad man. So you guys, I believe that's all I had to say about Outrageous Season 1. I am really hoping BritBox picks this up for a second season, because like I said, it seems like this show has adapted the front half of that nonfiction book, and so they have the second half to go. And yeah, the drama and the scandal is just starting to unfold. It's going to get even wilder and crazier if we do get a second season. The lives of these women and, you know, the surrounding characters, it's going to get insane. I mean, we have World War II coming up, you guys. It should be thrilling, exciting, heartbreaking, devastating, and yeah, I think that's going to be kind of the thing. Can these sisters, can they make amends at the end of the day, or will it be too late? We shall see. So you guys, that is it for my thoughts and feelings on Season 1 of Outrageous. In the comments below, did anybody else watch this show? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did this review push you to go watch the show if you haven't already? So that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye, guys.